I'm going to show you a simple recipe for sourdough starter from my bakery friend Anita. You will make your wild healthy yeast from scratch with just flour, water and air. This is how bread, pastry and pizza should be. Totally a forgotten recipe, but sourdough is luckily becoming popular again. For this recipe you will need water and flour. We are using rye flour here because it's richer and dense nutritionally, so it has more food for the microorganisms which are in sourdough. This will make the fermentation easier, so it's a good way to start. This process will take approximately a week, but once you do this, you have your starter forever. You will only have to feed it properly. Remember, your jar needs to be loosened so that air can play its role and your starter can breathe. You only tighten it up when you leave it in the fridge. Day 1. Mix 20 grams of rye flour and 20 grams of water in a glass jar. Leave the jar's cover slightly open and place it on the counter or some other warm spot in your kitchen. Mix everything a bit twice that day. Add another 20 grams of rye flour and 20 grams of water and stir everything up. Mix a bit again twice that day. Add another 30 grams of rye flour and 30 grams of water. You should see signs of life in the glass. Your mixture should have grown a bit and started smelling sour. Mix a bit again twice that day. Take half of your starter and use it for something like pancakes, for example, and then for 3 days keep up with the same process as on day 3. If you don't break off half, your starter will get too acidic and stop working. So breaking off half of your starter is actually the best way to grow it. Mix a bit again twice that day. Add another 30 grams of rye flour and 30 grams of water. Mix a bit again twice that day. Add another 30 grams of rye flour and 30 grams of water. Mix a bit again twice that day. The starter should now be very active and full of bubbles. It is ready to use, but please know that the younger a starter is, the weaker it is. The more it matures, the more predictable and better at rising dough it becomes. Once your rye starter is ready, take 5 grams out of it and put in a new jar. Discard the rest. In the new jar, add in 25 grams of water and 25 grams of white bread flour, organic if possible, and mix it all together. I recommend adding white bread flour because this way you will slowly convert your rye starter to white starter and the taste of rye flour will eventually disappear. However, if you would like to experiment with the rye pizza flour, just mix in rye flour instead of white. Then leave it outside for 30 minutes and after close your jar tight and put it in the fridge. Next time, when you would like to bake, you will use 50 grams of your starter, and with the remaining 5 grams, you will make a new starter to save it in the fridge for future use. It's very simple. So first, to prepare the starter for future use, take out 5 grams of the starter, put it in a new jar, and repeat the process you did before to make your starter. 25 grams of water, and 25 grams of white bread flour. Mix it well together, and after 30 minutes put it in the fridge. Like this, you will always have 55 grams of starter in your fridge, 50 grams to bake whatever you like, and 5 grams to create your next 55 gram starter. So how do you use the 50 gram starter in your dough? You will first need to make it levain. To do this, in the 50 grams of starter, add 100 grams of water, and 100 grams of white bread flour. This is called 1-2 process. Mix it all well and set aside for 4 up to 8 hours depending on your room temperature. Then you should have 250 grams of levain ready to mix it in your dough.